Australian Navy Reserve. Time dims the memory of ordinary events, but not great events. In a nation's history, great events, whether in peace or war, live in our memories regardless of time. They are deemed great not necessarily for what they achieve, nor for whether they are reckoned to be victories or successes. Rather, the great events are distinguished by the quality of the human endeavour they call upon, by the examples they create for ordinary men, and by the legends they inspire. So it is with Anzac Day. On the 25th of April 1915, 16,000 Australian and New Zealanders surged ashore at the foot of rugged cliffs on the Dardanelles Peninsula in Turkey to open a campaign intended to give Allied shipping access to the Black Sea, bring help to Russia and perhaps force Turkey out of the war. An hour ago, as parents here today woke their children to come to this service, we can only imagine how, in 1915, the men felt who climbed over the gunwales and clambered down the ropes into the boats under moonlight to land at Gallipoli. They could not have imagined nor understood what role they were about to play in forging our nation's character. It was, historians say, an ill-conceived campaign in pursuit of vague objectives, premised on an underestimation of the military prowess and character of the Turkish soldiers and the tactical advantages that they held. But the cream of a young country committed themselves without hesitation to the nobility of their cause and fought with courage, skill and audacity. A disproportionate number of them were West Australians. All were volunteers. In the 8 months which followed their first landing, some 50,000 Anzacs were committed to the battlefront. When the last of them was withdrawn as winter set in, more than 11,000 had perished. War is a curious beast, played at the extremities of honour and folly. As the boats approached the shore, you can imagine young hearts racing in the slapping of oars on calm water. But the rhythmic, gentle sound was shattered by the roar of mounted batteries and machine guns raining down with horror. From the moment they landed, it was clear there had been a massive blunder. A hurried gathering of officers considered immediate withdrawal as the only rational course. But the order came from General Hamilton in 2 words that would coin a phrase, never to be erased from the Australian character: dig in. Gallipoli was a tactical defeat. Its only redeeming feature was the speed and stealth of the ultimate withdrawal 8 months later. But the achievements of the Anzacs were to be measured other than on the battlefield. It was not just that Australians were serving overseas in the name of their fledgling nation for the first time. By their commitment, their courage and their comradeship, the Anzacs set standards that inspired their countrymen and echoed through the years to us now. Gallipoli told the world that Aussies had guts. The legend they built gave a voice to new feelings of national pride in a young nation. And the news of their suffering, their resilience, on reaching the homes of anxious awaiting families, brought people together in a bond they had not known before. It is a day on which we mark the deeds of men and women who had come to see themselves not as a displaced people, but simply and empathically as Australians. The names on the public memorials in virtually all our towns and cities are a permanent reminder of the loss of each precious life in those dark days. Australians have always fought for the betterment of their fellow men and women. We also remember those who fell in both world wars, in conflicts in Korea, in Malaya, Borneo, Vietnam, since then in the fight against terrorism in Iraq, Afghanistan, and while on service with international peacekeeping forces wherever they are called. In particular, today I will remember the 645 men of HMAS Sydney recently discovered lying in Western Australian waters. I will pray for the health of our friend, Lieutenant Commander Matt Sheehan, who at 92 is this state's oldest living treasure. If the actions of any man could be attributed to bringing World War II closer to ending, it was those of Matt Sheehan and the crew of his Australian submarine in the South China Sea. It was Gallipoli which gave us pride, not in war, but in the knowledge that Australians, put to the test, would not fail. That spirit and tradition sustained our forces in battles and trials, and in a special way sustains us still. And tradition is important. Suppose our troops had performed badly at Gallipoli, lost their nerve and their morale. How much more difficult would it have been for those who had followed? How much easier to give up, surrender and stay at home? The Gallipoli tradition laid down an ethic and still helps us today to face new challenges. Duty, patriotism, individual sacrifice, and the affirmation of the Anzac kinship are the enduring legacies of Gallipoli. That is the spirit the Anzacs handed down to us. If we lose the Anzac spirit, we lose our soul. So we stand today to honour ordinary men and women who rose to the occasion and found greatness within. We gather not to glorify war, but to remind ourselves of the gift we received, of that which we hold in trust. We understand the freedoms we possess are no accident. We acknowledge the courage and sacrifices of those who shaped the stamp and style of this proud nation, still young and full of promise. I hope in 100 years from now, on the 25th of April, Australians will wake their children before dawn to honour the Anzacs because, in the words of John Stuart Mill, war is an ugly thing, but not the ugliest of things. The decayed and degraded state of moral and patriotic feeling, which thinks that nothing is worth war, is much worse. The person who has nothing for which he is willing to fight, nothing which is more important than his own personal safety, is a miserable creature and has no chance of being free unless made and kept so by the exertions of better men than himself.